Alex, season's greetings to you, sir.
Ho 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 ho! I have my this actually literally just came in today. It was like fate basically. It is Aerith and Tifa baking cookies, Christmas cookies, and they're all the Final Fantasy VII characters. So
Oh, wow, okay.
yeah, yeah. Season's greetings.
You think it's fate? Do you believe that?
No,
Let's get into it. Do you
no.
believe that your fate is predestined?
To a certain from a certain point of view,
God's point of view?
yeah. But
Okay.
it's but it's not about the destination per se. It's about the journey, and the journey is not who's to say,
Hmm.
who's to
Fair
say? That's
enough.
that's not necessarily written. So
Well, we'll get into that later. All right.
yeah. What does that
Now,
have to do with? What does that have to do with this sack?
okay, so a couple years ago, oh, what the heck? Something flickered on my screen. It said you're about to
Oh,
get taken over. So I don't think it's anything.
what? What?
No, something did flicker on my screen, but I didn't see what it
You're
was.
about to be invaded, Zach. Something's gonna just gonna burst through the curtain behind you.
um, so a couple years ago, we did a thing called the Season of Giving. All right, we
Yeah.
we did a month of it where it was alternating. I picked a movie, Alec picked a movie, back and forth for the month, and basically the idea is it's a movie that one of us has seen, the other hasn't. Uh, Ideally, it would be one that you like, so it's like you're gifting them that the chance to experience that movie. This time we're just doing an abbreviated version where we each have one movie, and then we're gonna have a couple other things planned for the other weeks in December.
Oh yeah.
But
Looking forward to it.
so I was up first, and I chose The
Yep.
Greatest Showman. Okay, and the reason being that The Greatest Showman is like the one of the we've covered so many musicals and
Yep.
music based movies and stuff. I feel like this is the big one that was missing, you know.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm curious what your thoughts are, on a in a general sense. Okay, what do you think?
I don't like this movie.
Okay,
I did not like it very much at all. I hate to
okay,
say. There were. I remember. Was this 2017 or 2016 when this came out? Because I remember
somewhere in
very
there.
like. I remember. I feel like it was 2016 because I remember very vividly.
Hmm.
Um, I guess it wasn't vividly if I can't remember the exact year. It seems to me it was 2016 because there's a lot of like I remember there was a lot of buzz around it. I was dating my ex at the time. Like she was really kind of getting me back into really enjoying musical theater and things again.
Hmm.
I remember there was like a lot of buzz around this. I remember I heard just I didn't like sit down and listen to any songs, but I heard in passing some of the songs. I remember she was kind of like she said something about it. I actually don't remember her making a big deal about it. So I don't know if she saw it and didn't like it either. I honestly can't remember. But I do remember like there was like all this buzz around it. All the it was like it's the glitz and glamour and it's like
Hmm.
all the choreography and everything and oh my gosh, I remember there was like a lot of stuff about it and about like This Is Me I think was like the big Oscar bait song.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
like that was the one that was up for the award for Academy Award. And I believe it lost to Coco. Remember Me from Coco, which I have not seen. Um,
That's another one I
and
wanted you to watch too.
yeah, I think I have a few problems with this movie. I have honestly I have a lot, but I feel like it's a lot of them are a little bit more nitpicky. I think some of my chief problems with the music um, are just primarily that like it's like it feels like the music was all manufactured to be radio played,
Hmm.
if that makes any sense. Like it feels like every single song is just it's not specific enough to the like you can tell while you're watching it. It's like none of the lyrics are very specific to things that are going on that they kind of fit in like by nature of it playing alongside a group. But so much of the music is like so not having anything to do with like anything specific
Hmm.
that it feels like it's made to be a top 20 radio hit. And I feel like that's kind of where I heard the music from. Because
Oh.
I've heard there were several of these songs that I've heard
Hmm.
before, and I never saw anything about this movie. I never sat down and listened to the soundtrack. I just have heard the songs through osmosis.
Hmm.
And I think they're fine songs overall. I think "This Is Me" is a pretty decent song, but I, I think another problem with it is that it just reinforces the fact that like this movie is not really about anything. I there was not like a character to latch onto for me to follow his journey. It's about P.T. Barnum, who's like a very kind of like sinister and notoriously like not history has not been very kind to P.T.
Yeah.
Barnum or his circus. The Barnum and Bailey's is
Or
like
that
it shut
circus he was
down.
running.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you called it that. He says with a wry smile. And Barnum and Bailey's like shut down like a few years ago because of like the animal abuse stuff
Right.
that they've been doing, and they're going to be reopening without any animals. I think
Okay.
later, I think next year they're relaunching, but with no animals anymore. Boy, but yeah, it's just like there wasn't like a plot to really get me like invested or involved, and it was like everything was just it was all too surface level, I think, because I feel like with something as complex as P.T. Barnum using like people with physical deformities, like that already sounds like an interesting like exploration of humanity and like the relationships that people can have that because I think he had a fairly complicated relationship with the people in his troupe. Some people hated him. Some people like felt of him as like a legitimate good person, like a benefactor, like he raised me out of poverty kind of thing. But I don't think there's any bones against, or I don't think there's anyone that would say that like P.T. Barnum treated them well. Like he was basically just using them for profit. But the movie just like glazes all over that completely.
I guess, yeah.
And so anyway, I don't want to like rain down too much of it. There was stuff in this movie I did legitimately like. I will say that. I felt that the one song, my favorite song in the whole thing, and I wish the whole musical was like this because I loved this song. And it was the song between Zac Efron, who I really enjoyed in this movie. He's my favorite character, and Hugh Jackman. That song was amazing. I loved every second of that. I was like, when that happened, I was like, oh, this is now we're really picking up steam here. This is really great. And then I was like, oh, it was back to the like, okay, never mind. It was sort of like I could because the songs were like character driven. It was like moving the plot forward. Most of the rest of the songs halt the plot completely for a character to be like, this is who I am, and this is what I believe, and it's like, a lot of musicals have that, but most of the time those are like they're a little bit more like pensive and introspective, but these are all more like I'm singing about generic like I love myself or I can't be with the person that I love or something like that, So anyway, I'm assuming you have much more positive take on this movie than I do.
Here's what I'll say is
I wish I liked it more. I wish I liked it more.
Here's what I'll say. The first time I watched it, my take was that I loved the music, and that the movie was just like, It was,
Yeah.
It was always the music that stood out to me. I still love the music.
I think the music is good.
I genuinely
will give
love
it
it.
that.
I genuinely love a lot of the songs in this movie. So, and I used to listen to it a lot. So that I don't have too many gripes with. I understand what you're saying, where it's not like all weaved in the plot perfectly, but
And it doesn't necessarily have to be. Like a lot of musicals like have both. They have your want songs, you have your moving the plot forward song, and then you have the I'm going to sing to the audience because to tell them what I'm feeling right now. And but like every single song was I'm going to sing to the audience and tell them what I'm feeling right now. And like to me it grinds the movie to a complete halt when you do that, and because it does it like there's like 8 or 9 songs in the movie or 10, I don't even remember. It was something like that. But like the movie like grinds to a complete halt every single time that happens, and for a movie that's as short as this, it's not a very long movie. I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes or something. It just feels like it's dragging its heels the whole time. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, I'll say my criticism I had at the time was similar to yours, is that it's like they romanticize him and his story, and they do kind of they gloss over the stuff because he did have some bad stuff. Like he had a whole thing where there was like a slave woman was one of his
Yeah,
exhibits.
yeah.
He wasn't
He
just like
owned,
this.
yeah, he owned like he like owned slaves
Yeah.
basically.
So it's not like he
Um,
actually in this movie had a change of heart and everything. And it's like
yeah,
he turned out to be a good person, redeemed himself, kind of thing. It's not really what his story is. But I enjoy it just from the perspective of it, like enjoying it as a story, like not as P.T. Barnum's story, but just like as a story by itself. I think it's like a wholesome message. If you ignore like or don't act like this is a reflection of his actual self, I
well, that's
like
the
the
thing is,
wholesomeness of it.
it could have been. That's what the thing. Like, if they completely like divorced it from an actual historical figure, they just made it like Circus Man.
Hmm.
I feel like that part was very distracting to me. The fact that this is about P.T. Barnum, that if you just made it about him
Yeah.
in particular, like just Circus Man, I think it would have resonated a little bit better for me, at least in that sort of
Mm.
aspect of it. But he still doesn't really have a character.
I think it's kind of fun the idea of like taking a figure and making it about because it adds a lot of weight to the story. Because like if you looked at this story and it didn't have the Barnum name to
Mhm.
it, it's almost like okay, so there's just like random circus guy did a thing, but it gives weight to it. So it's like there's some semblance of reality in how like an actual rags to riches story, but then he like has a redemption to it. It's
What's the
you
redemption though? I don't feel like he
will
changes
he
as a
has
person from most of the
I
movie.
really like the last song, or not the last one. I think it's the last new song from now on. I really like that song where
I'm trying to
he's
remember.
basically like from now on my eyes will not be blinded by the light kind of thing. Basically where he's like he was in the bar and they all come in and then it's like
Except except he was because P.T. Barnum was terrible financially for the
yeah,
rest
but
of
in
his
this
life.
movie, in this movie though, well, and it's not even like saying that he like it almost became that wasn't the point anymore. I like how he retired halfway through like the performance. He was like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go see my kids grow up. And Zac
Yeah, that
Efron
was
ran in
kind
there.
of that was like I was like, all right, cool, see ya, I guess.
Zac Efron is like they give him a different name, but he is basically supposed to represent Bailey of Barnum and Bailey.
Yes.
I like how they handled that dynamic at least, whereas like he was the posh guy who wouldn't pick
Mm.
up we don't pick up peanut shells kind of thing, and then
Hmm.
he had like a change of heart in a different way. Like they both had a role reversal. Uh, Barnum went too far the other way, and then what was his character? Do you remember his character's name? Zac
I
Efron
don't
is,
remember the character's name now,
but
unfortunately.
he basically he fell in love, and this whole like little side story with Zendaya. I think Zendaya is great too. Um,
I mean, I just she's just a beautiful woman in
but
general.
they had, I
I
like that song
yeah,
too. Rewrite the Stars. I genuinely like almost all the
yeah.
songs in
Is
this
Rewrite the
movie.
Stars is Rewrite the Stars the trapeze one
Yeah.
where they yeah, I like that song too. That's actually I would say that's probably my second favorite sequence in the film. Um, I will say another thing. You can tell that this was directed by a guy who had no more experience than directing music videos, because it shows.
Mm.
He's very good at it. Um, I don't. I don't really think he's very good at doing anything else in this movie, but he's certainly the musical sequences visually, other than the CGI, which is awful. Visually, they're very nice. That trapeze one is like was beautiful. I would have loved it. Honestly, I would have loved to have seen that in a theater. I felt like that would have been just. I would have been just like, oh, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
This is movie. This is movie magic right here. This is great. Um, the rest of the movie, not so much, but that scene in particular was very cool,
Mm.
very beautiful. But
So I mean,
um,
I've always had some like complex feelings about it. I wasn't just always I didn't just love it unconditionally,
yeah,
but I do genuinely love the music.
yeah, no,
I still love even in the beginning. It's kind of cheesy, but I still love a million. What is it? A
Million
million
Dreams.
dreams.
It's like isn't it like it that song's really weird though because that song's like 11 minutes long and they keep cutting out and then like talking for like three
Wait,
minutes and then it comes back in again and then
I
it's like
like
it's very
that. I
strange.
like that because he grows up in the song. and then he's a grown man,
Yeah,
and
I
then
like that
it
sequence.
passes on to his child, says the same thing.
That is kind of sweet. That is kind of wholesome. Um,
I just like the wholesomeness of it. Sometimes I don't need.
Another
Sometimes I don't need a movie that I need to like really lay into. I just like the wholesome message of it, and I'm like,
I
it made me
sometimes
feel good.
okay.
It made
You
me feel
need
good at the end. If you don't ignore that it's about Barnum the slave owner, it made me
even
feel good at the end.
even I feel like you need just a little like, and I wasn't asking for much. I'm just asking for like a little complexity, a little depth, because
Mm.
that's what I mean. Everything is just so surface level. It's like there needed to be just something more, because like I agree with you that there's hints at stuff. I feel like the relationship between Zendaya and Zac Efron's character is like there's hints of something there, but there's never really like they don't really have a conversation like in the whole movie until it's like oh like where I guess where it's sort of like weird, where it's like there's like a hot and cold where he's sort of like kind of like there's clearly like feelings developing between them,
It's
and
a
he's like doesn't want to
class.
rush
They're
into it.
divided among class
They're divided among
and
class, and then
race.
so she's the one that's like that's kind of like why you have these misgivings, and then he's like and then eventually like it's just he just changes so that, like we don't see it, it just immediately flips. He's like now I'm into this, and then she's the one that has reservations after that because she doesn't want to like ruin his life. Basically, she's very complicated feelings about her own self and being self-conscious about her skin color and her perception in America and everything. So that's all very understandable. And then the movie does this wonderful thing where it punishes her for having second thoughts and almost kills Zac Efron's character until she realizes, oh, I'm supposed to love you after all, and then that's the end of the character arc,
Not supposed
which
to.
isn't
She
really
does love him after all.
which isn't really a character arc. It's more just like, oh, I guess these are things that happened, and it's kind of depressing and
Mm.
weird, and strange. I feel like the best way to describe this movie is it's very strange. There's a lot of things that happen in it that just sort of happen, and there's not really an explanation for. Like I felt like this is where the movie's gonna get good. There was this one moment where P.T. Barnum is like schmoozing up to the all the highfalutin people. He's like, oh, and he's like rubbing his in-laws' face in it, and he's also showing off to Jenny Lind, who's a legitimate like she's a real, very extremely famous 19th century opera singer that they weirdly like character assassinate in this movie, which is another strange thing.
Hmm.
The, there was this moment where like the freaks are coming in, which is they're not really a character either. None of them have real individual characters either, which I don't also really don't like. I think that's terrible. Um, they come in, they're like, oh yeah, well, they're coming in, and he just like shuts them out,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, then they're like, how dare? Instead of being like sad at all, they're like, no, we love ourselves now, and then they just sing about how they love themselves
This
now,
is
and it's
me.
like, yeah, and it's like, okay, it's a good song, but like, I would have liked a little bit of like, they didn't seem like they were really put out by the fact that he did that, because they kind of just gloss over it, and there's never really like a specific interaction that he has with them that makes it seem like, oh wow, he's really cares about them. Like the most we get is like some stuff where they're being like really nervous before they go up on stage, and he's like, no, you'll be great. That's like the most that we get of his like personal interactions with each of the freaks,
Well,
which is weird, because then Zac Efron's character is the one that gets all of the like sort of more moments with the ensemble. I don't know. It's just a lot of weird. There's just a lot of weirdness in this movie. It's just
okay.
very.
Because I found
And
myself
I think
I found myself enjoying it more this time than I did the first time. The first time I would have given it like a much lower rating than I would probably give it now, because I was like, I don't really care for the movie too much, or
yeah,
the story too
I
much,
definitely
and
don't.
but I loved the
I did,
music, and I've warmed up to the plot because it makes me
there
feel
isn't a
good.
plot.
Look,
There isn't a
there is
plot.
a
That's the
plot. There is a
problem.
plot.
What is it? What is the plot?
It's the P.T. Barnum's, the character, not the man, not the historical
Okay.
figure. It's P.T. Barnum's
Yeah.
journey from he has a dream. He he goes from rags to riches with this dream, and along the way he loses sight of what he truly wanted. The woman he
Which
loves,
was
never cared about the glory or the huge fancy house. She just loved being with him even when they were poor, and he lost sight of that. And then he got the downtrodden people together. He lifted them up, and in doing so, he lifted himself too far to where he became what he hated the most in the end. And then at the end, it all comes crashing down, and that's what it takes for him to realize that he lost his way. And from now on, his eyes will not be blinded by the light.
but I don't feel like he never really wavers, though. Like, not really. I mean, I guess because they could have made, this is what I mean, that they could have made more of a deal of like all of those things that you just said, because things just sort of happen and then it's like immediately on to the next plot point, like where Jenny Lind is like trying to get him to cheat on his wife for some reason, and then he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So it's like, okay, well, he's steadfast, that he's maybe thinking about it because he's flirting with her, but no, at least he's steadfast and honorable to his wife. It's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then she vindictively like kisses him, which actually I watched this with a couple people, and all of us point out how strange it was, the fact that they make this really big deal of showing like they're really taking the huge flash photography. They're like, whoosh, they're taking these massive flashes when the kiss happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing that we see in the newspaper is an artist's rendition of that happening. It was just a very strange thing. It was like, why would you do that? Like, as a film thing, like, why would you make such a big deal of the fact that pictures are being taken and then it's an artist?
Were there a couple of different versions? Am I remembering that wrong?
No.
Were there a couple of versions of it?
No, it was just all we see is that artist's rendition. That's all we see. It's very weird. Everyone was like, what? Okay. Why did that happen? Yeah. Why was it like that? That's just a funny nitpick.
I didn't notice because I was too lost in the wholesome sauce.
I was lost in the magic of the movie.
That was the lights that blinded me in that moment.
I don't normally like going like to like I don't like normally parsing out, like, I guess I don't really know what to call it. Is it right, I guess, to like to conflate like racism to people with actual physical deformities? Is that like,
what do you mean?
Because so like Zendaya is like beautiful. She's like one of the most beautiful actresses in Hollywood, and it's very distracting. And yeah, it's in a time period in America where like, black people were very much looked down upon. Slavery wasn't like legal per se, even though there was a slave in this in P.T. Barnum stuff, but that's besides the point. But they were still very highly looked down upon in most regions of the country, the Jim Crow South, all that sort of stuff. But she was able to like, she was like an extremely talented person. She could do trapeze. She had a job. She presumably also had a job before P.T. Barnum because she could do trapeze. So she could have been in any sort of like circus act anywhere. And we're conflating the struggles of that with people with like, who legitimately are like, their family was rejecting them. Like at least an African American family would be able to stick together. Like, isn't it her and her brother? Isn't that like the thing? I can't remember.
If they cleared that up, but
and then we have like people who are like, they even say in that song like, our families all rejected us. So it's like, there's a weird like, there's just a weird tension there that I didn't really quite sit right with me either.
I think it's fair because it's not, I mean, the message is that these people are being outcasted, not justifiably, unjustifiably, for things that are out of their control. It's like, okay. So they've like,
yeah, okay, I guess
come together and that, just from that idea of being outcast. Like one guy was just tall. The guy was just tall, And
he's just a very tall man. Yeah, it's true. I can't remember what he was called. Tiny Tim. I don't remember what he was called.
They made him the Irish Giant. That's right. He's like, you're
The Irish
Irish.
Giant. That's it.
I think you're Irish.
Also, the conjoined twins who were very clearly not conjoined. That was very strange. You could see like one of them was like wrapping his arm around the other one.
I don't even remember them.
Yeah, that's because they didn't have a speaking line. Also, they didn't look anything alike. It was very strange. That was another thing that was really weird. I noticed that in the background. I was like, that was supposed to be like the Siamese twins, is what they were referred to in their act, which is, that's not a. I'm pretty sure that's definitely not an okay thing to call conjoined twins anymore. But like they didn't look, it didn't even look like they were related. So it was like, I got the two Asian guys. We'll cast them. They'll be the conjoined twins.
And they had the little person.
Tom Thumb.
Yeah.
Yep. He was the one, I believe, that was very. I think he went on to become like extremely wealthy in and of his own right.
Like the actual person.
He was like, yeah, and he was very, he was very fond. Like he considered P.T. Barnum like a very close friend. So like there's a very complicated. That's what I mean. There's some complicated relationships here, and I felt like we didn't get any of that.
I feel like
because it was more about like P.T. Barnum and his dream. It was not really about him and his actual personal relationships, which is also another thing. I was also mad because I thought his wife was going to be more of a character in this movie. She starts out as this kind of spunky little thing at the very beginning, and then she just becomes wife.
She's wife.
By the end.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying is true. There's definitely a movie there that could be made. Where it's complex, the complex relationships. Obviously, if you get so real into what actually P.T. Barnum was, then it's like he's going to be completely unlikable.
Yeah,
but
maybe so. You don't
there.
have. Yeah, so I think like maybe a revisionist kind of thing where it's like you are still trying to spin it in a positive way. Maybe that's worse. I don't know, but I feel like completely glossing over all of that makes it feel like way more like inauthentic in its own way. Like because I feel like there's still a musical about chasing dreams and about being who you are and not caring what other people think and loving yourself and all that sort of thing. And I think with added complexity of the relationships, you can still, I think there's still something there. I just wish this musical was that because it's a little bit. I guess safe is probably what I would the best description. Strange in what it's doing, like weird, but also safe. And maybe that's, I think that might be my problem with it more than anything.
It is revisionist. It is romanticized.
Yeah.
And I did truly have that same issue that you had with it. Even more so when first time watching it. I think now I've just come more to terms with just enjoying it for what it is.
This is like, that's fair, honestly.
Because I feel like this is a movie where it's focused on the music and the overall wholesome message they made out of it. But there could definitely be a separate movie where they actually got into the complexities of it and more true to life.
I just don't know if it deserved all the. Well, I guess the music is pretty good. I mean, it's
really good. I think you're being too harsh on it.
I might be being a little too harsh on it, but like, I mean, a lot of it, I don't know. Because like when I think of like good or challenging pop music, I mean, we reviewed Dua Lipa, and that was like one of the best albums like ever. But this is primarily catering towards that same sort of demographic, like the same sort of pop kind of demographic. And I don't feel like, despite the fact that like there are several of these songs that I've heard before, so obviously there is some appeal, like radio appeal. But I just don't know if it's that. It's not like the songs are good, but I don't know if I would consider them that good. If and maybe I'm holding it maybe to too unfair of a standard. But if you're gonna make a pop musical, I don't know.
Okay, I just disagree. That's fine. That's fine. But I would urge you to watch. They did like it was like a live rendition of it. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's Kiala Seattle, I think her name is, the woman who the bearded woman who's saying "This Is Me." It's like her doing it, and like Hugh Jackman's on the piano, and she's like getting real emotional. That's really cool, and he's getting emotional too. That's a really viral.
Yeah, I mean,
good one.
sure, I'd like to see
So
that.
that's
Yeah.
cool. And I would also there's like a little clip of Zac Efron hearing that song for the first time. The right here, right now. I'll put the offer out. That one.
Can I just say that like
That's cool.
I kind of like while I was watching this movie, I literally I turned to the other guys there. I was just like, I love Zac Efron. And he's just so unbelievably like charming, and he's just such a. I think he's a legitimately good actor.
Hmm.
I do.
Yeah.
Um,
And he can
and I
do.
was like,
He does have a lot of depth too and versatility that we've
yeah,
seen. Even just
yeah,
we reviewed Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile.
yeah,
It was very
yeah,
different than this role. But I think
for
he
sure.
definitely thrived in this role too. But
Yeah.
yeah. But can we talk about so the biggest songs, or not even my
Hmm.
favorite songs in the movie? The biggest song is "This Is Me." That's like super viral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I still think is a really great, really powerful song. Another one that's almost as big is "Never Enough," which is the Jenny Lynn song. That I've seen so many covers of
I'm not
before
gonna.
even watching Greatest Showman. I still
I'm not gonna
countless
lie.
covers.
I actually don't like that song. I'm gonna say that's one of the songs I really just don't like.
I'm gonna say
I'm gonna be perfectly
that's not
honest.
one of
I
my
didn't.
favorites, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying I felt weird about that. That song is interesting to listen to or see in the movie with context, knowing that it's like one of the most covered songs I've seen on YouTube from like a lot of artists, and it's like it's such a weird context to it because there's so many like there's like some negative undertone with it, but it's like this
Yeah.
powerful song at the same time that
Okay.
everybody loves.
That's another really weird thing too, is that we've just met Jenny Lynn in this part of the movie. We have just met Jenny Lynn. Like we've spent the last 5 minutes talking about Jenny Lynn being this opera singer. They're really talking up her opera. She gets out. She sings a pop song. And that's the thing. The movie grinds to a halt for this character that we just met to sing a song for like 4 minutes, and it's very weird. That's just very strange to me.
That is strange. Definitely, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think their idea
it's
was that like this, they're trying to like get you, shock you, or it's
yeah.
like no one else had heard this singer. Hugh
Mm.
Jackman or P.T. Barnum hadn't even heard this singer yet, so it's like, wow. And he's like, I hope she's a good singer. He's really just like completely sold
Had he
out at this
never?
point.
I get like signing her, like before he heard her, because I think that may be what actually happened. Like he was like, oh yes, you can. I'll have you sing. We can sell out crowds and things like that. He probably did that,
Hmm.
but did he never hear her like rehearse like the movie is
No,
like he didn't like go to rehearsal or anything. He's just like, well, I hope she can sing, and it's like
he was just like, I hope
uh
he's good, and then his
yeah, it
face
was
lights up. He's like coming as he
yeah,
watches it, so
yeah,
he really
it's like
enjoyed
it's
it.
wow. Yeah.
But there's so many weird layers to it where there's like the whole interaction with Zac Efron and Zendaya, like
Mm.
holding hands, going to hold
Not holding
hands,
hands.
and then
Yeah.
not holding hands, and
That's the hot
that
cold.
thing.
That's the tension. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was because
Yeah.
of the look that his freaking parents were giving him or whoever.
Yeah.
You know, it's this like theme of like, you pretend like you're with them, and then it's like okay, but it's not a good look. And
Mm.
like with P.T. Barnum won't let them come in, even though they're supposed to be the stars of the show. He completely sold
Yeah.
out for this famous singer just because she's already established and everything. So it's just weird because people when they do covers of the song, it's like so. It's such like a powerhouse kind of song, and it seems so powerful. And then the song does have like that double meaning where it's like never enough, and for P.T. Barnum, it's never enough. He always wants more. But it is like weird to
Yeah.
watch as it's unfolding because it's a long sequence. Just
Yeah.
her singing.
It's a very long. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. So like because the visuals are like they do some like that like yeah what you said where they're cutting to like different characters reacting to it or whatever. Um, but like to me the more interesting songs are the ones that are visually more interesting. So like
Yeah.
the trapeze one, which I think is again that whole sequence. I was just like, all right, this is really great. The song's good, the choreography and the cinematography are all really solid. I mean, it's like a music video, which
Hmm.
makes sense because this guy directed music videos. Um,
Yeah, and I do think the one you said was your favorite song. That's fun. It's some fun choreography in
Yeah.
there
Oh,
in the bar.
I love that. I loved every second of that. I was like, more of this. This is like, I love, yeah, that's the kind of like theatricality that I love, and you can tell. I will say another thing that's kind of nice is that you can kind of tell Hugh Jackman clearly really likes musicals. He was clearly having a lot of fun
Hmm.
in this, and that's kind of nice.
I
At
will
least the
say,
actor's having a good time.
yeah, the whole reason I even found out about this movie is because way back when Hugh Jackman was posting on Instagram, like when they were making this movie, and he seemed like so
Hmm.
passionate about it every time he talked about it. And
Mm.
what I was thinking when I was seeing this for the first time, like on there, I was like, oh, this is like some indie little movies. Like I don't know what this is. The Greatest Showman. It's gonna be the small thing that he's working on. He's passionate about. So I like that. But then
Yeah,
years later, it's huge. It's this
yeah,
huge phenomenon basically, and it's like,
very
well,
huge. I'll say I've seen probably, I will say probably like a lot of houses I've been into, wherever a kid has a piano, where they're like learning piano, I see a songbook of The Greatest Showman. I see that. That's like every single place I go to
hmm,
that has a piano, where a kid is learning piano, or they're, they have a son or a child or whatever that's learning piano. They have that songbook. Like every single person has that songbook. So it's like, yeah, it's clearly that it has songs have a very wide appeal for sure.
hmm.
Um,
And
but
the last thing I'll say is I do really like how they started the movie, where you're immediately going to the Greatest Show song. I think that's really cool. Where like even when they're doing like the little the logos in the beginning and stuff, the music's already going, gets you right into
yeah,
it, and then that's how they end the movie too. I think it's pretty cool.
yeah, I like how it was all like really big glitz glamour, and then it like focuses down on him,
Ladies and
like
gents.
where it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was like that's I like that. That was cool.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing Hugh Jackman doing his thing when he's passionate about
Yeah.
something like that. All right. So,
Yep.
what score do you give The Greatest Showman?
This is like this is rough. I think it's like a 5.5 for me. I think there are
5.5.
legitimately good things about this movie. I feel like most of them are hidden over the veneer of things I don't like.
Hmm.
um it's really too bad. I feel like the talent is here. I feel like a movie is here, but it just none of it works. It really needed more. I think I almost feel like it needed more time to bake, to kind of get some of those more complex ideas out. Um, Maybe some of that's just my personal taste in musicals more than anything. But I just don't, kind of like my problem with a lot of like my problem with musicals that just don't seem to go deep enough or too surface level. Like kind of my problem with a little bit of my problem with Dear Evan Hansen, um,
Hmm.
too, is that a lot of that's way more character driven, and I'll give it way more props to that. Even though I think I gave that movie, because that movie adaptation was terrible, I give that a very low score. The music in this is way better than Dear Evan Hansen. Just production values alone, but I don't like it when I need more character, man. I need more of a person to root for, and I couldn't really root for anybody because
I feel
the
you.
none of the freaks had a character, and I wanted to root for them. I
But
really did.
this is the movie where let your freak flag fly
Yeah,
applies.
that's what I mean. They needed more of that, and they needed to actually, like, I don't know, be individuals rather
Hmm.
than a unit. So yeah,
Okay, 8.5. All right. It's 8.5. I love this movie. And when I first watched it, I probably would have given it like a 7, 6.5. But I came
mm.
around on it, and I just love it for what it is. Just like those freaks. I
So,
love them. I love them just how they are.
is it okay to call them freak? I mean, P.T. Barnum called them freaks.
Yeah. Well,
And he
he's
seems like
based as
he
fuck.
seems like yeah, he's a really good guy, right? I mean, the movie sure doesn't say anything
I
that's too bad
separate the
about him. So
character from the
he's,
individual. All right. I don't support P.T. Barnum.
do not support P.T.
I
Barnum. I will
support
put that
Hugh
on record.
Jackman's P.T. Barnum.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, that's fair.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the Tarqaron score of 7. Okay. 5.5, 8.5. Quite a discrepancy.
Is that really what it is?
Yep.
5.5 to 8.5. Yeah, I guess it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a big discrepancy right there. That's one of the biggest we've had.
Bigly.
But
Perhaps
it's
the biggest.
simply Bigly. Can't believe he said that. By the way, I can't believe he said Bigly. I don't even know what that is.
Do you think they'll make a Trump musical one day?
Oh no!
But they'll romanticize it, and
The
I'll be
worst.
like,
The
I love
worst
Trump
part.
the character.
See
Not,
the word. No, they can't do that. They can't do that. It'd be horrible. See, because the thing is like, it's either gonna be he's a complete and utter like caricature, which is just like, who wants to watch that? Or it's going to be a weird, like, strange romanticization, which is also weird. And like, no,
either
don't.
one, either way.
Not everyone needs to be the subject of a musical.
Either way,
Leave
yeah.
Trump in maybe. Oh, here's what they would do. They would make a what was the reality show he did?
The Apprentice.
The Apprentice. Yeah, just do a musical, The Apprentice. There you go. Yeah.
Even though either way, Donald Trump doesn't lend himself to a musical really well.
No.
Even when he was just businessman Trump, it doesn't really lend itself.
No, not really. You could call it the art of the deal.
Yeah, that's right. the greatest deal.
The greatest deal? Deal or no deal?
The greatest deal, and it's his story from riches to more riches.
The richest to more riches to
riches to presidency to
to embarrassment of the entire country. Yeah. All right. Well, that's that. Zach, what should the fine folks go? They saw us break down a musical. They saw us have differing opinions. But what should they go?
You've seen us at our lows. You've seen us at our highs. Go watch our review of West Side Story. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it was around this time of year last year. Did that.
Yeah, we got a lot of musicals under our belt now. All right, we've got a lot. Most of the big ones. Which ones are we missing now? You think? Chicago.
Oh, I mean, there's tons of big ones that we're missing. Yeah, we're missing like Chicago. We're missing like, I mean, like I don't know, like Into the Woods. That's one I'd like to. I've never seen that actually.
Neither have I.
I've never seen the film version. I will say I've seen a Broadway like filmed version of it, which I love. I think is
we got
brilliant.
The Sound of Music, The Music Man.
Oh, Music Man! Well, I just watched that again for the first time in like years back in September.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it? Have you seen The Music Man?
It's been years. Yeah, only when I was in like grade school.
Yeah. I used to not really like that musical very much. I came to a very much more huge appreciation for
the Wells Fargo wagon.
The Wells Fargo wagon.
Coming down the...
There's
There's also
Shapoopy.
Saving Mr. Banks.
That girl that's a musical?
There's music in it. Let's Go Fly a Kite is in it.
That's because that's from Mary Poppins.
I know. I like Saving Mr. Banks. Saving Mr. Banks would be a fun one to review. Even though,
you want to know a secret? I've never seen Mary Poppins.
I don't know if I've seen it either.
That's like one of the biggest glaring things I'm missing from my childhood. I feel like is Mary Poppins. So that's something we got to rectify.
You got to pop your Poppins cherry.
Zach, please bring us out. I don't want to hear that ever again out of your mouth.
Do you want to give us a tease? Do you want to give us a tease of what we're reviewing next week for yours? Next
week we are going to be reviewing something completely different. Mamoru Oshii's masterpiece, The Ghost in the Shell, the 1995 film. But we'll see what my actual feelings are on it, because I haven't seen it in a while. And I've never really talked about it with anybody. My actual feelings about Ghost in the Shell. So that'll be interesting.
Ladies and
gentlemen, I didn't call it a masterpiece, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I am in love with it. So we'll see.
Yeah, I had a lot I was considering, and it's tough only picking one because it's like, when will we get another chance? You know.
It is. I had a few other. Honestly, I had Ghost in the Shell, but like Akira is one that you've already seen. But there's like a handful of other ones that I was thinking about too that are in the works.
A lot of variety, but ultimately what it came down to was like I made a list of them, and then I was like, are they available to stream? A few of them weren't, which I might have picked otherwise.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, Greatest Showman. I've always wanted to get this one done, so it's good
No,
time.
I'm glad. I'm honestly, despite the fact that I was very critical of it, I'm glad that I finally watched it. So
Hmm.
it does feel like one of those ones that like I need to watch this at some point just to say that I have, just to say because I feel like, I mean, like I said, I've heard like several of these songs before. It's clearly a cultural touchstone of a sort.
Hmm.
I actually don't know like how fond general people are of the movie. I know people love the music. That's all
Yeah,
I really know.
I don't know
But
either, really.
yeah,
But thanks for watching. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed, like the video, leave a comment, hit the notification bell, and click the links in our description for social media. Okay?
I need to get a Santa hat.
Yeah. How
Yeah, looks great.